We're back.
Okay, creepy. I'm pretty sure he grew up next to power lines. If you're like me and you're enjoying getting lost in a great book, then you'll definitely want to check out some of the powerful works by our next guest.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to our Spotlight Profile. I'm pleased to be joined by Paula Kamen, an author, writer, and a feminist, and as well as a journalist. So first of all, Paula, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me here.
So tell us a little bit about your work and what you do.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm mainly a journalist based here in Chicago. And the last book I wrote that we'll talk about today is Finding Iris Chang, and it's basically a biography about Iris, who was a good friend of mine since college, and also tries to get to the bottom of her mysterious suicide that happened in 2004 about why this person, who was the most envied of anybody that I ever met, would take her own life. So that book investigates that.
You said she's a pretty inspirational journalist for the Asian American community. What makes her so?
Yes, I mean, she was an absolute icon for the Asian American community, just in so many ways. She was so symbolic, she almost took on this superhuman persona that she was most known for her best-selling book that came out in 1997 called The Rape of Nanking. And that was about atrocities the Japanese committed during World War II in China, and specifically in one of the most brutal massacres in what was then the capital of China. We know it now as Nanjing, but back then it was Nanking, and it involved just mass murders, mass rape, just in the most brutal and horrifying way you could ever imagine. And the book very vividly documented that to a Western audience and made it a major topic of conversation. And so when Iris became symbolic of somebody who refused to stay silent and confront injustice, and the book became symbolic not just about Nanking, but about all the atrocities the Japanese committed all over Asia in World War II, and about the lack of apology and some revisionist history books, perhaps whitewashing it that they may have. Mm-hmm. So it just spawned this whole worldwide activist movement. And then when she committed suicide, she was also symbolic of. I saw for other things. I wrote a eulogy about her and our friendship that appeared in Salon.com, and I got so many emails from people across the world saying that she was symbolic as a working mother, as someone who was obviously depressed, as a next generation of Asian people that are more ready to stand up for authority, even as a journalist making journalism a respectable profession in the Asian community. So yeah, on so many levels, she was a symbol.
Okay. I see that you graduated from U of I with a journalism degree. What got you into that?
Yeah, well, I was on the campus in the mid '80s, and the school paper. That's where I met Iris. It was really fantastic. It had a huge circulation. We were very independent. It wasn't owned by the university. It was a separate, independent company, and it had very high standards. It was very challenging. So just an amazing place to be as a writer, and exploring a lot of social issues for the first time. It was a good forum. So a lot of it was just that newspaper in general, because I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but that probably channeled me into journalism. Okay. Being there. So
you have 3 other books, including this one. Can you briefly discuss or briefly talk about the other books and what they follow?
Sure. When I was 24, and much more idealistic than I am now, I wrote a book called Feminist Fatale, and that was about women in their 20s and the women's movement, about their conflict in believing in what the women's movement stands for, but then not wanting to stand up and be labeled a feminist. And that came out in '91. Mm-hmm. And then about 9 years later, I published a book called Her Way, about young women's sexual attitudes. And it was sort of related to the first book, to to discuss progress that women have made, and also about how status in society that they've gained has influenced their personal lives. That basically it was also based on interviews with dozens of people and taking a lot of statistics and boiling them down. And then the third book, the one before this one, was called All in My Head, and that was about my journey to deal with an 18-year migraine, and that I still have. But it's also about chronic pain and a lot of the hidden dramas that people go through when they have it, and how much more advancement needs to be done to adequately treat it, especially for people who have it every day. So that's the book's in a nutshell.
Cool. All right, folks, that's a look at Paula Kamen. For more information on her and her books, you can log on to paulakamen.com. Paula, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
If you want to get your hands on any of these great reads, head over to paulakamen.com, or you can always pick up a copy of any of her books at amazon.com.
What is in a name that which we call a rose by another name would smell so sweet?
I didn't know you were into theater.
Oh yeah, I love it. In 3rd grade, I was in Romeo and Juliet.
Wow, I'm impressed. Were you Romeo?
No, I was The Rock. If you have love for the theater, then you won't want to miss what the Silk Road Theater has to offer.
Sure, there's Legally Blonde, and Mary Poppins just landed her umbrella in Chicago, but the Silk Road Theater Project shows plays you might want to catch.
I read that the theater project is a response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
That is correct. My life partner and I, Malik Galani, who is originally from Pakistan and is Muslim American, and I am part Arab American. My father is from Syria. We wanted to respond to the anti-Arab, anti-Muslim sentiment that really swept the country after 9/11 in a way that was multifaceted and authentic and would create dialogue and discourse between communities.
And so the first theater company in the nation to showcase Asian, Mediterranean, and Middle Eastern playwrights opened in 2003.
There is more representation today than there was when we started about 6.5 years ago. I don't think there's nearly enough. But I think that, and I certainly don't want to take credit entirely for this, but I think that at least partially the fact that we exist and that our mission exists and that we articulate it the way we do, that more theater companies out there are now willing to look at work that we call Silk Road work or Silk Road content.
More than 22,000 audience members watch stories like Pangs of the Messiah, Golden Child, and Durango come alive in the theater. Located in the historic Chicago Temple building, many of the plays are world premieres. The theaters featured playwrights like Tony Award winner David Henry Hwang, Velina Hasi Houston, and Philip Khan Gotanda.
That diversity is not just black and white or black, white, and Latino, but that if we're talking about Chicago and if we're talking about Chicago theater, we're talking about a truly global population and people from all over, of which Asia and the Middle East are significant players.
The companies won the 2008 Broadway in Chicago's Emerging Theater Award, but the show must go on for the Silk Road Theater Project. The next ones to watch will be the Silk Road Cabaret this October and the DNA Trail out next year. Christine Ostel for The Slant.
Get your tickets to the next hot show or just learn more about the incredible theater company at srtp.org. Don't go anywhere because still to come an adventure that's more exciting than babysitting.